Okay, here's some tips on blow drying your extensions. First of all, know that you technically can air dry your extensions. If you have a lot of natural wave, maybe you're wearing wavy extensions and you want to encourage that, you can do that through diffusing it. You can allow it to air dry. I do not like the look of my hair air dried. I might be okay with it day 1, but day 2, 3, 4, I just look like a crazy person. Much better if I just take the time once a week to fully blow dry my extensions. If you are going to air dry your extensions, be mindful of a few things. That napping, I can't stress enough how you have to avoid that. One of the ways is, of course, brushing before you get in the shower, brushing in the shower. But say you have, especially if you have a lot of texture in your hair, curl, frizz, or you're wearing wavy or curly extensions, and you're letting them air dry, you have to make sure that that weft is fully brushed out when you're in the shower. And if you're gonna put some product through there, maybe even just brush through it one more time. One of my friends at work has curly hair and curly extensions, and she allowed her hair to air dry one day, but she wore a big bulky hoodie. And so that hair was just kind of like doing this as it dried, and she ended up forming naps that we had to get through. So you just wanna be very mindful that it's possible. If you let it air dry and you wear it more straight, get in there and like comb it out at the top before you curl or before you go to bed. You have got to pay attention to that. But in this case, I am going to rough dry my hair first. I am not gonna go in and start pulling on my extensions and round brushing them from wet. Also, I am going to be blow drying my hair in sections. I personally like to start on the top and then move down. Other people might like to start on the bottom, drop their row, blow dry that, drop the next row, and finish on the top, preference. So you're gonna see me rough dry my hair, and you're gonna see me round brush my bangs and the top. Once that's done, I'm going to scoop the top up in a neat bun, and then I am going to show you how I blow dry my extensions, and we're gonna talk about some things to pay attention to. Before I get started on my bangs, I like to take a small amount of the Isles Finishing Serum as I go and put it on, especially my natural hair, because again, I have very puffy, fluffy natural hair. So I'm gonna put a little bit more of that through the section that I am going to be rough drying first. I like to put, for a rough dry, my heat and my power up to full blast. I'm not letting that sit on one section. I'm moving that heat around, and I'm using my fingers to help push my hair around, especially with my bangs. I like to push them across my forehead this way, across my forehead this way. It basically allows my head to be like a round brush by smoothing my hair back and forth, kind of flat wrapping it against my forehead. It gets it volume and it gives it a very soft look. Once my hair is 90% dry, I'm gonna get the round brush involved. So that's what you're gonna see me do. When I get the round brush involved, I'm gonna lower my temperature to the bottom, like on this particular dry, because it's quite hot, I'm gonna lower it to the lowest setting. So you can see that my bangs are pretty dry at this point. There's my fluffy natural hair, gently combing through those ends. Now that it's mostly dry, I am gonna blow dry my bangs because my bangs are very important to me because they are what shield the world from my giant forehead. Okay, the bangs are dry. I can detail them later, but often, especially if you have a bang, important to get that started first. I'm gonna continue to blow dry this until it is 80% dry, and then I am going to round brush it. When you are round brushing your hair, and also when you're round brushing or drying your extensions, maybe not necessarily round brushing your extensions, you want to start at the root. The root is where your hair is the densest. It is also where your hair is the healthiest. The healthier your hair, the denser your hair, the longer it's going to take to blow dry. So, see, even a hairstylist gets caught up with what the heck am I doing and how do I section my hair off. So I am going to section a small amount of my hair so that I can focus. I'm grabbing what is my natural hair above my top row. And it is about 80% dry. I'm going to round brush it. And my blow dryer turned off. So you can see how I have spent most of my time blow drying my roots through the rough dry and also the round brushing process, because by the time I get to my ends, they are pretty much dry. I just have to drag it through the very end to kind of polish it and settle down the fluff. When you are round brushing and trying to smooth out your hair, the most important things are heat and tension. Heat is going to allow your hair to kind of take on a little bit of a different state. If you have frizzy hair, if you have fluffy hair, if you have curly hair, the only way you're going to get that to smooth down is by using heat. And the opposite of heat, cool. And tension. One of the reasons people love a round brush is because you can turn it a small amount and it grips your hair. So if I was just to pull that through straight, you can see it's just my hair's falling out. But I put it in and I turn it back a small amount. Now my hair's locked in there and it's pulling it tight. That pull and then that heat is what's gonna pull it straighter, polish it, and then by allowing it to cool a little, which this is not how often, I mean, this is dramatic, I'm just talking. By letting it cool, then you get that really smooth, sealed down, shiny, not frizzy hair. So if you are not getting it as smooth as you want, you may need to make sure you're getting a good tension with the brush as you pull and that you're chasing that section, that tight section, along with high enough heat. Heat's not always the enemy. Often people think, you do want some heat protection, which is why I like to use Isles formula because it has heat protection in it, but you don't need to always use a low heat. If you use a low heat, you may not actually get the result you're looking for as far as the smoothness that you're looking for. So now we're gonna take this section and continue. I'm gonna split it in two. I'm actually gonna put a small amount. You can see just as time has gone by and with the little bit of round brushing that my section, especially on the ends, which is where I'm gonna concentrate this serum, is starting to dry. And that's good. We're getting closer. Okay. How do you know if your section is fully dry? A very quick way is to touch your hair. Does your hair feel warm or does it feel cool? If it feels cool to the touch, it is likely still a little bit damp. It is smart to get in there and fully blow dry it. You can even round brush fully dry hair. It's similar to using a curling iron in that you are styling your hair with heat. You're just using the heat from the blow dryer instead of the iron. we've got the entire top section above the extensions fully round brushed. I kind of obviously flip my bangs back and forth a lot before I decide where they're gonna land that day. It's just the way I do it. Just kind of let them be soft. I flip them back and forth to help them continue to have a little bit of volume. And then at some point I make a decision on where they're going to stay that day and give them a little hairspray, and we call it good. So I'm gonna clip that little section up that's been round brushed very neatly in a way that's not going to give it a lot of crimps. However, if a crimp does occur, once it's let out, you can quickly round brush over it again and it'll smooth that crimp right out. Now we are left with the top row exposed of extensions. As we talked in the previous video about how we have a lot of hair that's very dense up here at the top, that density that can lead to potential matting if it's not cared for properly is also the wettest part of the hair, because all of that hair again is the thickest up there, it is the healthiest up there, and it is compressed together. So you actually really want to focus on blow drying this top. By the time the top's blown dry, the ends are pretty dry already, similar to the top. So I'm gonna go through this entire row and you're gonna see me lifting it out and kind of just like running it through with my fingers. I have found, is it scientific? I don't know, but I have found that doing a rough dry with my fingers is a much faster process than doing it with a brush, because in my opinion, my fingers help to kind of absorb some of the water. That's what I've experienced. So this is how we're gonna do the root. Okay, now grab an ice pack for your shoulder because that can tax your shoulder. Takes a while, but guess what? Now that that root is dry / almost completely dry, the ends are almost completely dry. So concentrate on the root. Another reason to concentrate on the root is because, again, this hair is so processed that the ends are very delicate, especially on the blonde hair. So you're putting most of the heat at the top and you're being very gentle to the ends. So now that I've got that mostly dried, I'm gonna go through and I'm going to take, because I'm at home and I don't have all the tools I do at work, I might use a vent brush or a flat brush for this part. Since I do not have that, I'm just gonna use my round brush. Again, tension is important, but the tension, you can get a tension with a paddle brush. Imagine this was a paddle brush. You can turn it and that's gonna provide tension, especially if you're going down. I find a round brush can be almost too much tension. Why do we need to be concerned about tension? Because these beads are attached to hair on your scalp. So if you're feeling a big pull, your hair is probably too wet and you might be using a brush that has too much tension. So get your hair almost fully dry so that all you're doing is polishing the extensions, and ideally go for a flat paddle brush. Now, why am I going over and over and over and over the section? Especially before I even get to the ends. Because again, I know that this was still damp. How can you tell it's still damp without touching it? You can tell it's still damp without touching it if there's drag. The less drag there is, the drier the hair is. So as I'm going through, the more easily I can pull this through, the more I'm like, oh, that's dry. If I got to say down to this midsection and it started to be harder to pull through and there's a little more drag, I know there's a little dampness. So I'm just gonna come up and blow dry again until I can get all the way through very smoothly, and then there's no more dampness left in my hair. Now, one thing that I like to do is once the row is dry, I like to take a little bit of my hair, a little bit of the row hair, just to kind of meld them together. So then we continue section by section. I take about a 4-inch wide section at a time, probably because that's about as wide as my brush is. And then just slowly but surely hold it, dry it, continue to re-grip at the top because we gotta get that top dry. And then eventually, once this is all dry, these are mostly dry, then we can just polish those ends. You're gonna do this entire process all the way around your top row. And you're not gonna stop until you feel that there's no coolness up here and that there is no coolness on the bottom. If you allow your hair, if you're going for a full blowout and you allow there to be any dampness in your natural hair or in your extension hair, it's really going to flatten your finished look. It's gonna mess up your finished look. Your curling iron curls are not gonna look as fresh and as bouncy and as even. So if you're gonna take the time to do the blowout, take the time to do the blowout. I'm going to continue to go through, and once this top row is dry, I am going to pin it up. I'm gonna work on the second row. Then I'm gonna work on my natural hair. You can see it starting to kind of wave up down there. I'm gonna work on polishing that, drop all of my hair, go through again. If I had my paddle brush, I would just paddle brush through to make sure all the moisture was out. And at that point, once it's all smooth and full and dry, then we're gonna get into curling the hair. So my top row is fully dry and I've lifted it up, twisted it, and added it to this clip. Now, in between your rows, you're gonna have some of your natural hair. You want to, I prefer to dry it separately because you can see that mine's essentially dry because my natural hair is not as healthy as the extension hair. So I just need to smooth it out, clip it up with the rest, and then I'll get started on my bottom row. I could blow dry that with my bottom row, but my thought is I would have to, since that is so dry already, it would take so much drying to dry my bottom row that my natural hair would have just gotten over dried if I just kept drying over and over and over, trying to dry what was underneath it. So now I have exposed my bottom row, and under my bottom row is my fluffy natural hair right here. So same process, I'm going to concentrate on the roots of the row all the way around. And by the time I get done with that, then the ends should be almost dry. They kind of are almost dry. I'm putting a little bit more finishing serum on because again, the finishing serum is hydrating. It has UVA, UVB protection. It has humidity protection and it has heat protection. So now we're gonna get started on the bottom row. those roots of the extensions are pretty well dry at this point. So now we're left with just finishing the job through here and then finishing and polishing those ends to get them smooth. Okay, last but not least, I'm going to take that bottom section, wrap it up. This clip is really straining to keep all this up at the top at this point, but again, at home with less tools than I normally have, we're gonna make it work. Ooh, I wonder why I get extensions, guys. So we're just gonna blow dry this really quick, smooth it out, and then we're gonna drop everything and we're just gonna finish the blow dry. So my fluffy, puffy hair is dry. One thing to remember, I have to constantly remind myself to do this, but it's something to keep in mind. When you're blow drying your hair, our arms are up and you can start to feel the fatigue in your shoulders. When your arms are up like this, it's very common to be like truly like lifting and like shrugging those muscles up. Try to drop your shoulders down as you blow dry instead of doing this. It actually is far more relaxing for your shoulders. So it's a habit that I'm trying to break, but if it's something that you didn't realize you were doing, just like I didn't realize I was doing until it was pointed out to me, it's something you can be aware of and try to change. So dropping all of my sections, my hair is now dry. I'm going to gently brush through. As I brush through, I'm feeling around for any cool or damp spots. If I have no cool or damp spots, then I have sufficiently dried my hair, and I personally am ready to go on to the next phase. My routine is to curl my hair after it's blown out, and then I can let that last beautifully for about 3 days, and then maybe I have to touch it up for the next few days. But really the extension hair holds the style beautifully. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Some people like on the first day to wear like a low bun for a while just to kind of help their hair settle down and get less puffy. That's an option as long as it's loose and it's not giving you any crinks in your hair. And then, the next day you could curl it. Or if you want to do this before you went to bed, gently flip it over into a very loose, soft top knot with like a loose scrunchie and sleep on it. Then the next morning you could curl. So we're now going to go into curling your hair.